Hello, my name is Sophia, and today I'm going to be analyzing my homemade soap. So the theme of this soap is Christmas themed because one, it has a light pink / reddish color, which is a common color within the Christmas spirit, red. And then two, it has the smell of a peppermint, which after smelling the soap, it's not like a strong scent of peppermint, but it's kind of a faint scent. And then three, during Christmas time, there's lots of toys given out and lots of gift giving, so I chose the animal of a teddy bear. And so the purpose of this video is compare the homemade soap versus a store brand bought soap, which this is just a bar of Olay soap, and see how their properties compare. So some of the tests that we'll be doing is pH, checking how well the homemade soap solidified over the time after cooling, and checking how well the soap cleans up after a homemade mess. So with the soap, I'm going to use a toothpick and poke a hole in it and see how well it's solidified all the way through for the soap. So I just poked a hole through it right here, and after using the toothpick and pushing through to make a hole, I would say that my soap was pretty solid overall. It didn't seem liquidy at all when I was poking the toothpick through. I would say that the soap is a little bit softer, but it's still a solid and it's not like mushy on the inside. I'll try another area more towards the bottom. And here's the other hole. And for the second hole, it was also very solid. So my soap overall stayed pretty solid. It wasn't very mushy at all. Okay, so now I'm going to be doing the pH test for both the homemade soap and the commercial brand soap. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lather up the soap with my hands in some water, and then I'm going to dry off one of my hands so I don't affect the pH of the pH paper with wet hands, and then use that to gently rub it against the lather of each soap, and then compare it to the pH on the pH scale according to what color pops up. So first I'm going to start with my homemade brand soap. Okay, now I'm going to dry off my hand so I don't affect the pH paper from the water from my hand. And now we're going to test the pH of my homemade soap. Okay. So this is what happens after I dabbed some of the lather from the homemade soap onto the pH paper. And if we compare this to the pH scale, I would say that the pH of the soap is around a 9 on the pH scale. According to the color, as you can see here, it's like a dark green. It's not blue yet, but it is like a darker green. And so now I'm going to test the pH of the commercial brand soap, the Olay bar. Okay. Okay, and so this is what the pH paper looks like compared to the paper of the homemade soap. And then when we look at it on the scale, it would be closer to a pH of 8 right here. As you can see with the colors. So now if I hold both pH papers up side by side, we can tell that the homemade soap was a lot more basic than the commercial brand soap Olay Bar. And so some reasons that might explain why this is because during the process of making the homemade soap, after we made the liquid, the lipids liquid, which was made of our chosen fat, which I use lard, and then our chosen oil, which in my case I used olive oil, we added 18 milliliters of 20% of NaOH, which is a very strong base. And this was the only liquid that we really used in the saponification process to make the liquid into solid chunks. And for a commercial brand soap, they have a lot more products that could counteract the basic property of soaps. And also, because of the fact that we use this really strong base and this was the only main product, this would result in an alkaline salt, which is going to affect the pH of the homemade soap. Okay, so now we're going to go on to the charcoal test. I just used some sandpaper and used the charcoal coal to make a ton of charcoal, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pat both my hands, palm side and back side, into the charcoal and use my homemade soap to see how well it goes through with cleaning the charcoal off my hands. Okay, so here are my hands. And so far, actually, my soap's doing a pretty good job wiping the charcoal off my hands, as you can see here, mid-wash. It's doing a very nice job. My hands feel very smooth so far in this process. It's not too bad. The soap is, though, getting a little bit of the charcoal dust into the color, but it's washing off. My hands at the moment, though, while mid-wash, they're kind of a little bit dry and the skin feels kind of tight while trying to wash off the charcoal. And actually, there's still a little bit of residue on my hands of the black charcoal. So the soap, it did initially wash off the main patches, but there's still a little bit of dark shadowing cast of the charcoal. And the soap is still trying to wash it off. So I'm going to try and get it off the best I can. Okay, so now I'm going to dry my hands and we're going to analyze how well the soap did on its job. So this is what my hands look like after I just washed my hands with the homemade soap. And as you can see, there's a little bit of a dark shadowing from the charcoal that stained my hands a little bit, that the soap wasn't able to get all the way off when I was washing my hands. And with the soap, another characteristic that I noticed with my skin is that it's kind of like really tight and dry, and that might be because of the fact that the soap is a very basic soap, so it will make your skin dry and not as moisturized. Okay, so now I'm going to wrap it up by concluding this video. So some of the things that I thought were expected of the handmade soap is that during the charcoal/cleaning test, it actually did a pretty decent job of what it was supposed to do, and it cleaned up the majority of the residue of the charcoal on my hands during that test compared to normal store-bought brand soap. It did pretty good comparing to that. Another thing that I thought was expected that it did pretty well at is that during all the tests when I was washing my hands, doing the charcoal test or the pH test or just testing it initially, it held its shape pretty well and stayed pretty solid. It didn't start falling apart or become mushy or any sort of that nature. Some of the things that were, though, unexpected was the fact that it was pretty basic compared to a normal store-bought brand soap like the Olay bar that we used. It ended up having a pH of 9, and then the Olay bar had a pH of 8, which, since the pH scale is a logarithmic scale, that means that the handmade soap was 10 times more basic than the Olay bar. So that was one thing that surprised me. Another thing that surprised me is that during the process of washing my hands throughout these tests, I didn't expect the homemade soap to make my skin kind of feel tight, and now have it be dry afterwards. So that was something that was kind of unexpected. Another thing that was kind of unexpected was the fact that the soap held its color really well with the dye that we mixed into the soap, because I thought it was going to wash off and make the soap less colored and saturated. And so overall, would I buy this soap? I don't think I would buy this soap in store, only because of the fact that it kind of dries out your hands really easily and makes your skin kind of feel tight. Now, if the soap was able to balance out that property but still have its really good quality of cleaning, because it did a pretty decent job at cleaning, then I would probably buy the soap. I think for how it physically looks and with its theme, it does an excellent job and it markets really well. But for actually moisturizing and making sure that your skin doesn't feel really dry, it kind of doesn't do very well at that. So that is in conclusion of the soap test and the video series.